struggling with justice at work? Are you struggling with, anger? What is it? Let's put it out there. Francis de Sales said once, if you struggle with a virtue, make a public statement about it. And so that's one of the things that we try to get men to do through our conferences, our retreats, and our formation programs.
Right, and then the next element is the protector. Other than the leader, the protector, and the provider. And as far as that protection goes, every man is called to be a protector, not just some. We talked about the work of the Kingsmen being primarily in the pro-life fight, the anti-pornography fight. These are fundamental to every man. We do these witnesses, these anti-porn protests in front of adult bookstores and strip clubs. It's called the No More Porn Tour. We've been doing it for almost 4 years now, about twice a month. And the women get it. They get it. There's women who are driving by family life, the common good, and women understand that. And we as men need now to step up to the plate.
You say that, and I've always kind of envisioned this building on fire. And inside the building, yelling out of the windows are hundreds or thousands of people. And you got guys standing on the sidewalk outside saying, wow, look at this. This is awful. I'd do something, but, well, I got a football game to go to, or, I got to go do this, or I got to go do that. Men afraid to run in and get engaged. But like you're saying, we see it. We know it's happening. We know the divorce rate is between 50 and 60%. Right. And in some places, I was in New Mexico not too long ago, the priest in his area, 74% divorce rate. We know these things are going on in the workplace, in the neighborhood, in the community, in the parish, from the pulpit, wherever we men are at, priests or lay people. We need to be addressing these things and holding people accountable, charitably, lovingly, but hold each other accountable.
That's right. Speak
to
the
do
truth
the right
in
thing.
love.
Okay.
Speak the truth in love. That's what we have to do. Like you were saying, the feminists were not, you didn't hear much from the feminists on 9/11. When the men were being men, when they were doing what they were supposed to do. Right. And so if we're leading, we're protecting, guess what? Provider comes next. If men focus on leading and protecting, God grants the provision. I think Matthew 6 draws this out best when he says, don't worry about what you're going to eat or drink. All this the pagans seek. You seek first the kingdom, and the rest will be granted unto you. And I think if men focus on leading and protecting, whether they're in ministry like you and I are, Doug and Damien, it doesn't matter. God will grant it if you seek first the kingdom. And I think that's at the heart of provision. And yes, providing food and so forth, shelter, but a legacy. We're talking about leaving a legacy to our children. And that at the end of the day, at the end of our life, that's what we're going to be most proudest of. Most proudest of. That's good English, isn't it? I wasn't an English teacher. French teacher.
So you could say it in French.
Yeah, don't ask me to.
Okay. Now, when you talk about leaving a legacy, I mean, Steve Wood wrote on that, about the legacy. He wrote a book on it, and which I think he's an outstanding example of men being active and doing something. So it's not just, you're saying, if I'm getting this right, just providing absolutely necessary and essential, and that's our vocation as husbands and fathers to provide. Right. But you're talking about going above and beyond, doing something more heroic.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Okay. It's not just bringing home a paycheck, bringing home the bacon, as they say. No, it's about providing our children with their Catholic identity, their faith. As Damien said, what power it is when a father brings his son to the confessional with him. Right. I mean, that's a legacy. Men being in the pews. How many women, when you look around in church today, compared to men? I mean, for every 2 women, there's 1 man, possibly, right? And the women are there with their children. Where's the is he on the golf course? They need to be called away from that, to the battle, and fundamental is the family.
Doug, in the priesthood, we're told that same thing in the seminary. Father Frederick Miller was one of our professors. Always reminded us it's not about a building being named after you as a priest or some title in the church or climbing up the political ladder. If you're successful in passing on the faith to the next generation, you have been a faithful priest. And he said that's the definition of holy priesthood.
I've always thought about that with regards to passing my name on to my sons, for example.
But they're all joining the Franciscan missionaries.
Oh, are they? Oh, I didn't know that. Did you guys know that? Because my sons are watching. No, but as you mentioned about the faith, the success that I have as a father is not that my children, my daughter, my children. I mean, I look at my daughter. If my daughter is called to the sacrament of marriage, she gets married. I mean, what have I done if I have passed on to her an understanding of the faith so that the man that she would, take as her husband, that she would, receive as her husband in union of marriage would be a faithful, God-fearing, God-loving, prayerful, sacramental man. I'm the one that lays that down more than anybody else. So it's not just passing on my name to them or an idea. It's really giving them something that they can live forever, their faith, and that's the heroism. You were going to comment on that.
Yeah, the other aspect about this is masculinity cannot be formed in isolation. If one of the main things we've learned through the Kingsmen is really the significance of a band of brothers, right? When we are out there conducting these no more porn tours, and let's say that there's 15, 20, 30 guys. For instance, we were just asked to go to Beltsville, Maryland with the Maryland Coalition Against Pornography. We united with another group in front of an establishment, an adult bookstore. There were about 25, 30 of us there. The place cleared out completely. The adult stores have come to us and told us through the newspapers, essentially, that we cost them hundreds to thousands of dollars when we're there.
Praise God. Yeah.
They need to set men need to set their sometimes their hard-headed pride aside and say, we'll unite, we'll band together, and we'll fight a battle that's worthy of fighting. Because sometimes we can become very critical of one another as men. We can say, well, no, that group doesn't do it right. We got the right answer. But no, there's a large battle where we need to unite together. And this pornography one, $99 billion industry, out of control. $3 billion is child porn. 600,000 sex offenders, registered sex offenders in our country. What are we going to do? So this, when we come together as men, the power in that band of brothers is just amazing.
When you're out on the sidewalk, you said women will come by, give you the thumbs up, applaud. Will men stop and ask you for help?
Not so much they'll be soliciting us for help, but they definitely admire us, especially other Christians. They really admire, oh, I'm so glad you're doing this. What group are you with? What church are you with? You'll get a lot of that. But mostly mostly every woman is very pleased with us there. The men, it's a 50-50. It's a mixed bag, I'm not sure, you're confronting me too much here. You're convicting me of something. So, but not so much asking us for help, although when we're ministering to the people that are there, we have had that opportunity.
I'm told we got a great email. Jill, can you let us know what this is all about?
Sure. Dear Life on the Rock, I've heard men say pornography helps them. Is there some way I can show these men that their ability to use restraint becomes a signature of a real man? How do you answer men who think this is good for them? Thanks, Andrew from Huntsville, Texas.
There you go.
Yeah, it's easy to give in to your lustful desires.
I mean, there really is a powerful, rationalization, justification that we can use on ourselves with any sin. But when it's so thrown in your face all around, I mean, what do you say to something like that, to someone like that?
Yeah, we get those questions when we're out there. Men do come up to us and say those sort of things, But really, sexual self-control is a virtue, and this is what we're working with the Kingsmen on, building men in virtue, action-oriented, right? And, of course, relating it to where men are. How would you feel if that was your sister in there? Or your wife, or that's someone's daughter, really making it personal. This is a person. Right. Do you believe in using someone? And like 90% of the country does believe in God. So even backtracking, well, do you believe in God? Well, what do you think God would say of this behavior?
Yeah.
And we don't shy away from that,
Well, I think that's so important to remember that Christ died for everyone.
That's right.
Even these people that are being used and abused in these ways. Our job is to imitate Christ in defense of souls, of lives, of others. And this is such an enormous abuse that we're just not thinking with the intelligence God gives us or the spiritual connection God gives us.
Men have bought into the lie. Yeah. The men that's making those comments, they've accepted the counterfeit plan for life and love. It's in our media. You can't blame them. Because that's all they see. They're not seeing authentic masculinity, authentic femininity, authentic, understanding what our sexuality's for. So yeah, I can see why a man would say, well, what's the problem? This is my marriage. No, pornography is an
fight for the salvation of souls, for the kingdom of heaven. We'll be right back after this.